Broncos country, how we doing today?
We are live. What is going on, guys? I am joined here today by Crushing It with Miles Smith, one of the best Broncos play-by-play artists out there. And what you are listening to today are the two best vocal cords in Broncos country, going to be bringing you our 2026 offseason wish list. But before we get into it, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, like the stream. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you leave a like and a comment on the replay. But if you're in the chat, make sure you leave a comment because we're going to be interacting with you guys throughout the show as well. And just real quick, I just want to introduce my co-host here for this lovely podcast today. How are you guys? How are you doing today, Miles? And yeah, overall, just let people know where they can find you.
Yes, sir. No, I'm not bad today. A little bit of a hectic day at work, but that's why we come and do this, because I get to talk about something I love, obviously, and working with you for the first time. I mean, we've had some passing moments. I think, we've talked about a few things in like my YouTube comments or your YouTube comments, and it's been a good time. I feel like it was inevitable that at some point we were going to work together, and so I'm glad we're finally here, man. But yeah, my channel's crushing it. I've got my tag. I pointed not at it, but it's there in my stuff. Play-by-play is kind of my thing. I'll be doing the Super Bowl this weekend. Super excited for that. And if you're watching on my side as well, go check out Kodiak. I put him in my description. He makes just great Broncos content. Absolutely enjoy watching his stuff. So yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's dive right into it. So we're going to do our 2026 offseason wish list today. And I know that, there's going to be we might sound like a metronome repeating ourselves with what a lot of other people in Broncos country have said about this team. But let's start with some of the positions that are currently on the roster already. All right. I have just a handful of positions listed right here that, we've kind of discussed a little bit. And, people are talking about, as potential free agent targets or potentially the draft. But you know what? Sure. I'm going to modify this real quick. I am going to put tight end first because I think that's the one thing we want to talk about. I think the first thing we need to talk about is tight end. And
I could agree.
Yeah, overall, what were your thoughts on the 2025 Broncos tight end room, and just how much did it make you just want to crawl up in a ball and just stare in anguish watching Troutman and Adkins and Kroll all year long?
So I'm gonna use a bit of a baseball comparison here. As the Seattle Mariners are to second baseman, it feels like ever since Julius Thomas left this team that the Denver Broncos are to tight ends, what the Mariners are to second baseman. It has been, I mean, just it's been rough for the Broncos. Really, I mean, our last decent tight end that I can really say had like that. Even halfway decent year was, Owen Daniels, and that was a decade ago at this point. I mean, he, in that year with a dying Peyton Manning and a Brock Osweiler throwing the ball to him, outproduced Evan Ingram this year even. And the only word that I really have for it is disappointing, because we got so hyped up on Evan Ingram. I know I did. I was guilty. I was like, oh, he's the guy that's going to fix the Broncos tight end position and all that shit, but it just did not materialize, and I don't know if that's an Evan Ingram problem, if that was potentially a Bo Nix problem. I think there's some blame to go around there, one way or another. But I mean, there was just it's a problem. It's been a perennial problem, and at this point, I think there's a strong enough free agent class that you don't really need to look for it in the draft. I think you can fix it in free agency, but I also feel like we say this about every tight end that gets brought in here, whether it's a high name free agency guy like we've seen in the past, or name a failed Broncos draft pick at tight end. I mean, I've got a couple right here that we can pull out. Dulcich is a Dolphin. Man. Where's Jake Butt today?
I think he's a commentator for the Big Ten Network up there in Michigan.
Honestly, probably protects his knee more than anything in Denver would have ever.
You know what? I think you're right. And, just talking about the tight end position, man, the thing that's disheartening for me is, okay, you try to go out there and fix it, but you also, I don't know, just the way they went about fixing it, I think they were expecting Ingram to be the only solution. And they were just like, all right, Troutman and Adkins, we're completely fine with that. And then suddenly in the AFC Championship, Adam Troutman's getting a 53% snap share. Then you're just like, wow, man, we really sold the bag with that one, didn't we? Yeah,
absolutely.
But either way, I think, I'm just sick of it. I think we're all just sick of it. It's just been an absolute mess since Owen Daniels was, out there with the rotting corpse of Peyton Manning, as you had already mentioned. And ever since then, we've had a couple guys that have stepped in and shown flashes, but really nothing been able to materialize altogether. Let's talk about inside linebacker, man, because
Yeah,
obviously I think that's basically like the tight end position on the defensive side of the ball. Granted, I think our linebacker play has been a lot better than our tight end play over the past few years or so. That being
for
said, it's still
sure.
not a high bar to clear. Not a high bar to
I
clear.
do want to jump in on inside linebacker because I think I mentioned this while I was talking about Justin Stranad in my last video, where and I'll kind of generalize it. I think you've got a solution on the roster. I think the combination of Justin Stranad, whichever way you choose to say it, and Dre Greenlaw, assuming that the latter can stay healthy, I think that was probably the most electric duo that the Broncos have had at inside linebacker since Bemarsh and Trevathan when they were, screwing people up. And then I think there's some solid depth there that we really haven't seen a lot of play time because we haven't needed the guys to step up. But I definitely think throughout the year, we saw that the weakest link in the defense was Alex Singleton. I think it's been that way for a couple of years. And that's, I like, he does one thing well, and it's defend the run. He can play the box like no other. Like Alex Singleton in the box, just making run stops. Great, like outstanding. But you get him in pass coverage. He made it like one or two really nice plays this season in pass coverage. I think there was, I forget who they were playing, but that one like batted seam ball that it was kind of underthrown, but he was able to get a paw up and knock it down.
Yeah, Washington. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I thought it was that game, but I didn't want to be confidently wrong.
No, but it was OT. It was either OT or late fourth quarter, and man, he delivered.
He did. And I would like to throw in as well. Like I have a lot of respect for the guy for fighting through testicular cancer this year and just everything that came with that. Like huge props to him. I think he will get paid somewhere just because he will be an upgrade somewhere. I wouldn't be shocked to see him take the Josie Jewell route and go to Carolina just because I don't think Christian Roseboom is all that. But what I will say is my biggest gripe with Singleton is there are just some missed tackles on tape that really kind of boggle me. Like I look at it and it looks like kind of your average, wrap him up, whatever, 4-yard gain. And I mean, either the arms just don't come up or they just don't connect and he doesn't get the guy down. And then you're thinking, okay, what the hell just happened? And I definitely think that there are some options to upgrade here. You mind if I jump onto a tangent here, maybe segue this a smidge before we start attacking the rest of these positions?
No, go right ahead.
Devin Lloyd needs to be a Denver Bronco next season. I'm going to say that right now. I think if it weren't for Myles Garrett having the absolute historic year that he had, Devin Lloyd was definitely going to be up there in Defensive Player of the Year conversations. This guy is the anchor to that Jacksonville defense, and they're going to be stupid if they can't find a way to bring him back. I think he's worth every dime you could possibly pay him at the linebacker position. But I mean, he made so many impact plays this season, none more memorable than I believe it was him that had the pick six on Mahomes early on in the year on, I want to say Sunday night or Monday Night Football. It was Monday night because I was coming home from the gym that night. It's like, there are answers, I think, on this roster. I think a guy like Lavelle Bailey or Jordan Turner as well could be decent depth pieces. I'm not saying you want to roll with them, but I'm saying, I mean, we've seen Lavelle Bailey get some live game snaps before, and he didn't look bad at all. We will get to that, J Prime. I think somebody threw something in if you wanted to pin that about Bo needing a number one. We will get to that. We'll touch on that. That's my thumbnail is the way that it is for a reason.
Yeah.
But Devin Lloyd is undoubtedly, I think, the biggest, or he has to be the guy that Denver goes after in this offseason. I'm trying to screw around with my list here just to see like what other options you've really got. I mean, this is fighting with me really bad. To wrap it up though, it's like I think you got to let Singleton go. I don't know what you do in terms of Stranad. I think Stranad played well enough this year to justify giving him a chance to start. I really think he made some huge impact plays, filling in whenever he had to, and especially having to start opposite Singleton. I think we did see on film that I think he is the better linebacker there. I think you start him for sure. I think you bring him back and start him. And like I said, I think you have solutions on this roster. I just don't know what that could look like, especially because again, and I'll shut up here. because I am rambling. But with Dre Greenlaw's injury history, you don't know if you're going to get him fully healthy. Obviously, this year missed a bunch of time with that. If Greenlaw can stay healthy, your solutions are on the roster. If not, you will have to look elsewhere. And I think Devin Lloyd could, either be the Stranad replacement or be that guy that really gives you that stability there in the middle.
Yeah, no, I think you made a lot of really good points. You know what? And it is maybe your solution currently is on your roster with one of your starters at least. But I think with Denver, I think, you can bring back Stranad. I really, really hope they don't bring back Singleton, but I imagine they will because he's a good locker room guy. Good locker room guy. And that goes a little far with this coaching staff, maybe further than it should. Maybe further than it should with the guys like, Troutman and just whoever has, just graced this Broncos roster throughout the years. That's kind of like a veteran type who's, been like, all right, he's just here for the culture and we'll sell him on the culture and he'll, pitch all the culture to the young guys. And there's nothing wrong with that when you're a team that needs to be rebuilt. But when you go to the AFC Championship, there's just going to be none of that. So Singleton, once again, you said, love the story, love how inspiring of a season he had, especially fighting through testicular cancer. He beat the Raiders and then beat cancer the very day after. So that was really cool.
Crazy string of W's.
Oh, yeah, just an easy string of W's. But, with Greenlaw, that was a little, I don't know how to put it. It felt like it was a roller coaster every year with Greenlaw because he was my number one free agent target for the Broncos this past year. He was my number one. I thought, a lot of the way the 49ers fans talked about him, it seemed like he was more of like a Aaron Gordon or Valeri Nichushkin type, if you watch the Nuggets or the Avs, where the defense just is not what it was without him. You saw the 49ers defense not be as good without Greenlaw last year. And anytime he did get the chance to step in and make plays, man, did he do that for the 49ers. But, we saw Greenlaw, we heard Greenlaw at the media scrum the day after the Broncos played the Patriots, and he said that learning the defense was like learning Spanish. All right. So maybe, I don't know. Apparently, Alex Singleton is a good communicator, and they never gave Stranad and Greenlaw the chance to really, be a formidable duo at the inside linebacker position this year. I think Stranad, you can bring him back, but the thing is, he can't be your only solution. Okay.
No,
absolutely not. Like Stranad, as good as he played this past year, 7th year in the NFL without getting a starting job. And he said that he wants to get a starting job in the NFL, and understandably so. I would do the exact same thing
100%.
if I were him. Oh, yeah, 100%. And overall, I just hope that we can sign an inside linebacker or draft one. But I would, if you're just going to keep Greenlaw on this team and maybe let Stranad and Singleton walk, maybe you see what you have in those younger guys. Maybe, okay, we'll give Drew Sanders another go, even though he doesn't exist. Maybe Karen,
right.
Maybe Lavelle Bailey or something like that. But either way, I just think the upside, the potential of that upside is better than all right, we know what we're going to get. Any thoughts on that?
No, I'm with you there, and that's why I'm not completely willing to be like, your solution's on the roster 100%. Don't go sign anybody. You're fine. You've got it. And another thing, too, is like, I do think that there are some good guys that you can go out and get. And that is really that driving force. I think you could let a guy like Stranad walk if he wants to go get his bag in a starting job where he's going to be the guaranteed starter going into the year. And then Singleton, of course, and I had this to say about Singleton as well that I kind of forgot to get to. Hey, Vic, I see you in there. But I would be okay with bringing Singleton back if it were in a reduced role. If it were in more of a backup running down sort of role for him. If not, I think you do have some good replacements you can go get. Obviously, we've touched on I can't even think, Devin Lloyd. We touched on him. There are a couple of guys that you can go bring in. Young guy like Leo Chanel from Kansas City, and I think that'd be a nice little up years. Nakobe Dean from Philadelphia. We've seen what that defense has done under Vic Fangio for a while, and then Alex Anzalone as well. Maybe not the most popular option, but I think he's had some good years. I think he's still got a couple of good years left in him. He might be a little bit of a maybe a stopgap for the time being, but with draft guys as well, like I do think you're probably going to be a little more knowledgeable than me in that. I am completely fine admitting that. My pride is not hurt, but I definitely think that at the a position that you've really got to look at how to get better one way or another. For sure. But I think you're absolutely right. You can't sit pat whether or not you keep your guys or not. Like you need some fresh blood in the room. And again, that's why I am pounding the table for Devin Lloyd. Give this man the bag. Russell Wilson can't hurt us anymore.
Yeah, I love that. And Ender Game, shout out to you. All Bo is missing is a good receiver who doesn't drop the ball. Bo can be a damn good quarterback if he has receivers who can match him. All right, I guess that's a good segue.
That's my graphics guy. My graphics guy.
Yes, the graphics guy, the Ender Games. Shout out to you, graphics guy.
Yes,
you must
sir.
do a heck of a job because Miles' graphics are always fantastic. So that's another
reason. There's a reason I got this man on payroll.
There you go. But either way, I want to talk about these wide receivers that we had on our team this past year.
Boy.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I'll just give you a chance to talk about, any of the guys that you want to, Sutton, Franklin, Humphrey, Andy, if you want to.
I've got all right. So I'm gonna take what was my biggest real takeaway from the playoffs. Give Marvin Mims the fucking ball. Give him the goddamn ball. This guy, and we've seen it. Even if it's just like streak routes and everything, and I think this was almost the Tyreek Hill path, where when he was a rookie, a 5th round rookie coming out in 2016, they basically said, all right, you're going to run fly routes and you're going to outrun guys. We'll let you do that in games, but we're going to develop you during practice. And I think part of Marvin's problem has been that he's been such a good punt returner, because he's a 2-time All-Pro punt returner at this point in his career. I think part of his issue is that, and it's not his fault, it's just he's too good at punt returner to throw him out on offense. And I'm with Vic here in chat. He brought up something. I never understood why you're reducing the role of a 2nd round pick that you invested real capital in. That's a top 64 pick. And you're not giving him the ball. And we've seen him come up big so many times in his career, even in just such fleeting moments. Like, my brain immediately jumps to the Bengals Hail Mary on 4th and 1 that Mims jumped up in double coverage to catch. I have no fucking clue how he came down with that ball, but he did. And we've seen Marvin Mims do some crazy things like that. And again, he's got the shiftiness of a punt returner that if you put him on a slant route and give him the ball, or you put him on a drag route running a mesh concept or samurai, even one way or another, he's going to make a defense hurt. And at the very worst, he's a deep threat. He's a guy that you can just send downfield and defenses have to respect. And I think that lack of an explosive second option in the offense, and we can loop that back to tight end as well, the lack of explosives from anyone else in the offense really has dampened Courtland Sutton a little bit, and some of that is self-inflicted on Courtland Sutton as well. Obviously, he's hitting his 30s, which is kind of where you start to see a little bit of that drop off physically. He's got a knee surgery on his resume, even if it was a good time ago. But Sutton is just felt like I like, there's a reason that he's had probably the quietest back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons ever. And his consistency has been so wishy-washy in the past, because we saw that incredible stretch in 2023 where he had 3 game winning touchdowns in the final seconds, or like at least 2, just like an unbelievable stretch. And then you see him have these unbelievable stretches on the other arm where he couldn't catch a cold. This guy just has some frustrating stretches, and I don't think that he's really got the wheels or even the route running to really be a reliable man coverage beater. And I think that's kind of what has hurt Bo a little bit. He doesn't have that number one that he can absolutely go to. And I think that's why you've seen such a spread of the ball before to guys that nobody would ever think of. Like Pat Bryant got a good share of targets this year, even with the concussions. And that's a whole other discussion too. PB's got to figure out a way to protect his brain, because that guy has, 2 concussions in a month is not good.
Woof. Not
any sort of good. I don't think super highly or lowly of Huff. He's a guy. He's there. He can throw his body at somebody and maybe make an occasional catch. we've seen him have a couple of, nice moments in a Bronco uniform. I don't know if he's a guy that Sean is willing to part with right now. I just don't know really what his role is in the offense, because he's almost, I would say, like a dollar store Cortland Sutton at this point. And I think your offense is built on too many of the same type of guys and not enough of like other skill positions or skill sets, should I say, are getting really the amount of snap share they should. So, like, to wrap that back, Marvin Mims needs the ball more for sure, and I think he's going to be competing for a pretty high role in the offense next year. He should be. That should be what happens, and I honestly think Davis Webb could utilize him in some pretty fun ways as well, because we had that really fun stretch with Marvin Mims over the back 7 weeks of the 24 season, where the offense was just the Marvin Mims show. It absolutely was. Vic brings something fun up too, and I think I saw Bronco Breakdown make a video about this, and maybe somebody else has as well. Jefferson is not happy in Minnesota. He is not. I don't know if you send I don't know what a trade for Jefferson looks like at this time, but maybe that's something that can be explored later on. What I will say though is I want to give Franklin another year before I really make my judgment on him. And I will let you get your piece in on this, but I thought the year 1 to year 2 jump was night and day. I think he still had some drop issues early in the season, but I think as we went on, I can't really think of one of those backstretch games that he really dropped a ball just outright, which was kind of the biggest question with him. I think we saw some good improvement out of Franklin. I want to give him another year. I want to see how his chemistry with Bo starts to click, especially because, and I'll tie this into Bo a little bit as well, I think Bo's deep ball accuracy got much better as the season improved. And maybe it's kind of a mirror image of last year as well, where the Bo overthrows weren't nearly as present. But I definitely think you need to look to bring another guy in the room. And you and I were talking about a guy that I was hearing about as well, Denzel Boston out of Washington. Yep. Mm-hmm. I definitely think that he's a guy that you could snare up in, back end of the first round and feel pretty good about. Maybe let him develop behind Cortland for a minute and then just kind of see where that goes. But where I said Huff was kind of a great, like a dollar store Cortland Sutton, I think if Cortland was, like an old hot rod, like an old muscle car, I think Boston could be your Maserati.
Yeah, no, you made a ton of really good points. And first of all, I just want to touch on this comment by Vic Chin. Jefferson is not happy in Minnesota. So I have one word on, what a Broncos trade would look like for him. That one word is impossible. It's not happening, no matter how bad he wants to get out of here. Actually, no, I'm not going to say it's impossible, because nothing would surprise me in the NFL anymore. Even professional sports, NBA, NHL trade deadlines going crazy today. But
I don't even follow basketball, and I've been seeing those trade graphics pop up, and I'm just like, holy God.
Yeah, literally. But, talking about, I'm going to try kind of work backwards to forwards with the guys that you worked about, that you were talking about. Troy Franklin, he improved a lot. I remember that first preseason game against the 49ers on that fourth down. He went up, he high pointed that ball. I was like, ooh, that's a little different. We didn't see him do that last year. And
it was.
Yeah, I know. I was like, and I will say that in Bo Nix's best games this year, I don't think it's any coincidence that they were also Troy Franklin's best games, right? You think about the Bengals, you think about the Cowboys, you think about the Packers. Those were games where Troy Franklin really showed out. And you know what? The result of not having Troy Franklin is having Lil Jordan Humphrey get a 74% snap share in the AFC Championship. Now, I'm a little bit with Lil Jordan Humphrey, I'm a little bit pessimistic. The reason I'm pessimistic is because I just want our wide receiver 5 to have a little bit more skill and a little bit more upside. Okay, I can
maybe
understand.
Something closer to like an Andre Caldwell back in the day.
Yeah, of course, or a Benny Fowler. Man, he would catch everything.
Oh, Benny. Oh, dude, I love me some Benny Fowler.
Oh yeah, me too. He'd catch everything. Heck of a media personality too on DMVR.
For sure.
But talking about Lil Jordan Humphrey, he's just one of those guys where, all right, you were cut from a 4-13 Giants team that was absolutely littered with injuries. And George Payton was like, man, it was really important that he came back with us. I was like, all right, so it's important that one of the guys who was cut from one of the worst rosters in the NFL was back with your team. And you know what? I get it. I get why you had to have a guy like Lil Jordan Humphrey the first 2-3 years. I think it's kind of like Alex Singleton, where if he's back in a reduced role, like where he actually should be, which is like 10-20% of the snaps, then
If that.
I'm perfect. Yeah, if that, I'm perfectly fine with that. But other than that, you're just getting a guy who drops passes in the red zone. You're getting a guy who makes really inopportune mistakes. You're getting a guy who couldn't make the tough catch to bail out our backup quarterback in the AFC Championship. So I'm good on Lil Jordan Humphrey. I really don't want him to come back.
I think you've talked me down on him because I didn't feel either way about him. I was like, backup receiver, whatever. I think you've talked me down on him. I think I'm in your camp here now.
Yeah, like, would I be panicking if they brought him back? No, because honestly, I guess our passing offense just doesn't work without him. I don't know why that is.
I did black magic.
Yeah, literally. But I think, next year you need to set yourself up so that's not the case, where you need to get Lil Jordan Humphrey and sign him from the Giants practice squad.
1000%.
Yeah, Marvin Mims, though, man, there's just no more excuses, okay? I feel like Marvin Mims could be on his deathbed and Sean Payton would be over the loudspeaker being like, we need to get you the ball more. Because ever since Marvin Mims' rookie year in 2023, I feel like Sean Payton has gone to the podium at least 5, 6, 7 times a year and been like, Marvin, we're going to get Marvin the ball.
We're going to make Marvin Mims a focal point in the offense going forward.
And then he gets like an 11% snap share with like one touch. And then, I don't know, averaging 20 yards per punt return. So, yeah, I guess that's the trade-off right there. But, with Marvin Mims, it took 2 injuries for him to get the role that he did against the Buffalo Bills. And all he did was be the most impactful receiver in the game. All he did was be our best offensive playmaker. And down the stretch in 2024, those explosive plays like that 97-yard pass or whatever it was against Cleveland.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that 95.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a long touchdown. And I remember I was so hype about that, too. I was streaming that game, too, so everyone got to see it. And something else that I do want to mention as well is, like, Marvin is this guy that you can give a multi-dimensional role to. Because again, I look at his 2024 in particular, like this guy just did good stuff with the ball. 503 yards through the air on 39 catches. Great. 12.9 yards per reception as well. And yes, I do have his Football Reference page pulled up. Nobody at me on that one here. And then rushing wise as well, like he didn't get the ball a lot. It was only 13 carries, but 42 yards, and he was a threat. They started using him as that backfield decoy. It was, I mean, like we've seen what this offense can look like when Marvin Mims is in it and getting that snap share that I think he absolutely earned after the way he played down the stretch and into the playoffs. This guy absolutely needs more snaps, and I will beat the table with you.
Yeah, of course. And, more snaps for Marvin Mims next year. There's no excuses, Sean Payton. He came up big for you. He's come up big for you in 2 of your biggest games over the past 2 years. So no more excuses. All right. Now, talking about Courtland Sutton, I just feel like we pigeonholed ourselves into because we re-signed him for like a $27 million a year deal. And I know that mainly if you look at just the guaranteed money or whatever, yes, guys, NFL contracts are fake. I don't think that's been a heavily disputed point in sports media over the past few years. But when I think about Courtland Sutton, okay, you signed him to like this $27 million a year extension for pretty much 1 year. You just tacked on one additional year to your contract, but you don't want to build your receiver room and invest too heavily into another top option. Otherwise you end up like the Bengals. Granted, we have the infrastructure to do it, and the Cincinnati Bengals didn't. But what I'm getting at here is that Courtland Sutton, you just need more, man. He was our best receiving weapon throughout the year. Before the playoffs, I was like, they need to really run this passing game through Courtland Sutton because he is ultimately our wide receiver one. He is our best passing option, but I feel like he was one of those guys that down the stretch, he just didn't deliver. And that's the unfortunate reality of the situation. I feel like he just didn't deliver against the Chiefs on Christmas night. 2 bad drops against the Chargers week 18. I know that wasn't really a serious game, but, still 1 catch, I think only a couple of yards. And then against Buffalo in overtime, man, if we don't pull that off, I think those 2 catches would probably have been the focal point of what we were talking about pretty much all offseason. And against the Patriots, man, didn't make that catch to bail out Jarrett Stidham and potentially put us in the red zone. Now, Will Lutz was not necessarily a sharpshooter kicking the ball that day, so Lord knows what happens even if we get in the field goal range.
Yeah, Lutz was not himself that day.
No, he wasn't. But ultimately, I just think you need a little bit more from Cortland Sutton throughout this year. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, though, and very quietly done so. But yeah, overall, I think that's, just all I have to really say about the receivers. They need a better
Yeah.
running back. The pass game is elite, though. And I guess that's time to talk about that. So,
Yeah. Good
yeah,
segue.
yeah. I mean, what were you thinking about watching, let's talk about Dobbins first.
I like this. I like this start.
Yeah. Yeah, Dobbins. What do you think about him? How do you think he ran?
Dobbins was team MVP for the first 10 weeks. I will keep it I will keep it simple. J.K. Dobbins, the way that he was running the ball, he was the guy that kept this offense on pace, on tempo, just in rhythm. He was the guy he was the type of back that Denver needs just to. And I'm kind of reeling over myself here. Thanks, Rocky. But Dobbins has that kind of balanced skill set that you look for in a running back. That you really want on your first and second down spots where you're trying to stay ahead of the chains and trying to make things happen. I think he had good vision against an offensive line that was maybe a smidge inconsistent in run blocking this year. Just some of my film, like I saw multiple instances where there were guys just kind of getting beat on random plays. So not everything, and we'll talk about him here in a minute, but not everything I think was on RJ when we get to him. But I do think that Dobbins definitely took better advantage of everything. And I think that's just, some of that experience, having that great vision to be able to just pick a hole and move it, whether or not you're cutting it to the outside or whether or not, you're coming back in or you're staying inside, what have you. And like I said, the way that Dobbins was running and kind of holding this offense up to do just enough while the defense was working their magic in that first stretch where we really had some questions about Bo to start the year. Dobbins, for me, again, like he was team MVP through 10 weeks, and there's a reason. He was top 5 in rushing yards, definitely not getting the kind of carries that a lot of the more premier backs do. But, kind of bounce back off of me here. How did you feel about JK just kind of while he was healthy and on the field?
He was nothing short of exceptional, man. People always say running backs are replaceable. You can pick one up off the street. Okay, you can pick one up off the street to give you good production, serviceable production, but you're not picking them up off the street in June to provide what level of play that he provided to you this past offseason. Like, he was absolutely fantastic your first handful of games. And honestly, it was big, when Bo was struggling and the offense really couldn't get going. It didn't click in the first part of the year. I thought they did a really good job. I thought Dobbins did a really good job carrying the load. But then you think about RJ Harvey, or actually before we talk about Harvey, all right, the guys behind RJ Harvey, all right, I thought they were wildly pedestrian. I just don't want to see them again. I think that's 3 years now. Jaleel has had a chance to establish himself with a pristine role in this Broncos offense, and he just hasn't.
Has not materialized.
Bidet, terrible. Like, he did a couple nice things on third and longs. Like, he picked up, I don't know, a handful of third and longs throughout the year, but catching the ball, like, too many drops, just too much.
Way too many. I do want to touch on that real quick too, just because I don't think Bidet offers much, like, as a runner either. He's almost the same, like, cut and cloth as Jaleel McLaughlin is, where, like, he's short, he can be shifty, and, like, if you get him downhill, maybe he can do some damage, but he's not a guy that I think can consistently make it work in kind of the way that, Denver was asking them to. I thought he was a kind of pedestrian kick returner as well. It was really for him and McLaughlin. I'll kind of morph them both in here. I was rallying for McLaughlin to get the ball this season just because I think we have at points seen flashes with him coming in and maybe sparking something on the ground. He gets hot and what have you. And I think we've, had that discussion for a couple of years now with Jaleel McLaughlin, where I feel like, McLaughlin, at least to Broncos country, was almost like the potential man.
Yeah.
It's like, what if we gave him more carries and just kind of let him do his thing? And really, and yeah, like I'm kind of here too. Like, I do think you need some fresh blood one way, not even one way or another. You just need fresh blood in that running back room. But I think the only guy that should return fully, obviously, is going to be Harvey. I think Dobbins, maybe you give another chance, but with his injury history, which again, isn't really his fault. but it's the way the business rolls. You know, you need guys to consistently be there. I don't know what a deal for Dobbins looks like. Dobbins wants to be here, but I don't know how much Denver wants to keep him is kind of the problem.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point there. And talking about the other guys, Harvey, I was really happy with his playmaking. I was really happy with his playmaking ability. That being said, I think, down to down, you just need a little bit more consistency from him as a runner. He made a couple really nice plays in the receiving game. You think about Buffalo, man, overtime spins away from those two defenders, and he gets to
for sure
50-yard line. What do you think of RJ's, first year?
So, and this is what makes RJ like so hard to kind of like pin what I think here. And this goes to every point you just made. Down to down, like it was frustrating. It was legitimately frustrating, especially going back and kind of watching on film. Like I would see a hole open up like as he's getting the ball, and it feels like it almost felt like there were a few plays where he just kind of Trent Richardson's the hole and just completely whiffs on it and tries bouncing it where he shouldn't. But then, you do see those explosive plays. You do see the plays where he's keeping his legs moving, where he's running through contact, and where he's just kind of making these, shifty, sweet moves that remind you why he was such an exciting prospect, where he does have that home run ability. And we're going to draw baseball in here. I felt like he slumped way too hard down the stretch. I feel like he really lost his power stroke, shall we say, down the back stretch of the year, where we weren't seeing the explosive runs that kind of made up for the inconsistency down to down. As a receiver, though, I absolutely agree that his playmaking ability there was really second to no one in that Broncos running back room. Even J.K. Dobbins, at times. I definitely think RJ has really high potential, and I think he's going to get a lot of time this offseason to really get to develop and figure out where he was in the wrong with his running. I'm excited to see maybe what RJ Harvey looks like. It was definitely a frustrating rookie year for him. There were a lot of highs, though, that I think Broncos fans should be encouraged about, that I myself am encouraged about. And I hope RJ Harvey works out, because the whole inside joke on my channel, somebody spelled a typo when they were trying to spell the word run. Here's some story. They spelt it Rin. And so the new story, or the new inside little joke here, kind of channel wide, is Rin the ball, or Rin J Harvey, or all that fun jazz. So for that sake, I hope it works out for sure, because I want Rin J Harvey to be good.
Yeah, Rin J Harvey. Now talking about, I think we've covered the running back position pretty well. Let's talk about left guard. So obviously, interior offensive line is not really, I think, something that a lot of people are just, super excited to talk about. But you know what? We got to talk about all 22 spots, or 53 spots on this Denver Broncos team. So
absolutely.
With Ben Powers, it's a little interesting because obviously he had the bicep injury. And, I initially when that happened, I was like, oh, man, it's not very good. But then the guy behind me, Alex Palczewski, he steps in, UDFA out of Illinois in 2023. And, man, all he did is step in and, he filled in very admirably for McGlinchey 2 years ago in the 2024 season. Then last year, man, he filled in really, really well for Ben Powers when he went out. So well to, I think, it's kind of like Marvin Mims, where his role was so good at what he did that he got relegated from his other role, because he began the year as the extra 6th offensive lineman and began the year as 63 reporting eligible with Alex Palczewski. But then he got taken off that role because he was like, I think this coaching staff was like, wow, Palczewski was just a little too valuable for us. But yeah, no, Ben Powers is probably going to be a cap casualty. Like, he just didn't really provide that much throughout the year.
Likely.
I thought he was like pretty solid the first 5 weeks, but when he came back, it was a little wishy-washy. And I felt like this interior never really hit their stride. I think they had a good game against Buffalo, but I think they were just marred with a little bit of inconsistency throughout the final, 4-ish, 5-ish games of the year.
Yeah. And there could be something to be said as well, because I know when they were bringing Ben Powers back from injury, there was that rotation at left guard after the mojo had already been there with Palczewski. And so maybe there's something to blame on that. But I'm with you in the fact that Ben Powers could be a cap casualty this year, especially seeing what Alex Palczewski put on film this year. And especially because you've got a guy like Frank Crum waiting in the wings that can be, that talented extra offensive linemen, and we've seen, Sean loves his extra O-line packages, the extra thick packages for sure. And it's when you get into a situation like this, especially kind of where Powers is in his career, he's getting up there in age a little bit, especially at the offensive line. And his play, he's not really in a position, I think, that someone like a Garrett Bowles is, where his play is really good enough to justify keeping him around for right now. And especially with a younger guy that I would argue outperformed you while you were hurt. I certainly think that we go into this next year talking about having I'm blanking here, talking about Palcho being that starting left guard. And I absolutely think that his play earned it. And it is the Marvin Mims argument, where his play this season, I think, definitely justifies going into this offseason, just projecting him as the starter. I think he definitely outperformed his spot on the depth chart 100%. Another thing that, I kind of want to bring up, just as we talk about interior offensive line, front and center a little bit. I'm interested to see kind of how center shakes out. I didn't feel like the play was bad this year. I definitely think it was an improvement over Wattenberg last year, and Wattenberg, I do think, made strides this season. And so maybe you almost kind of end up in a spot, and I don't know how they're going to shuffle this at all. They did sign Wattenberg to the extension. I mean, what, like a month, 2 months ago, sometime kind of middle start of the backstretch of the year. This was something that I talked about too, like almost wondering, like, was the extension for Wattenberg, do you almost bring in like a late round guard that has like the crazy physicals that Quinn Miners has to let him develop and let him kind of stew for a minute? Or are you really that convinced in Wattenberg? And I definitely don't think Wattenberg played bad this year. But I definitely think the depth on the roster also gave him a run for his money. I thought Forsyth looked pretty all right for his couple of games. Maybe there were some blow up plays that I missed. I again would have to go back and watch that. If I'm wrong on something, I would be happy to admit that. But as well as I think Sam Mustipher also and I'm not saying Mustipher is going to come in swinging as the starter, but what I am saying though is that I do think his backups, Wattenberg's backups, definitely gave him a run for his money, especially Forsyth down the stretch once he went down.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You know what? You said pretty much everything that needed to be said. So
real quick, Darian does bring up a really good point, though. Gargiulo was having a really, really good preseason before he got hurt, and I think he'll be back. He'll be back next year on this roster. I think the coaching staff definitely thinks they have something in Nick Gargiulo, for sure. I do remember watching that play too, just kind of like, ooh.
Yeah, I remember. I was just like, yeah.
That was bad. I do hope that Gargiulo does get himself right and is able to keep doing what he was doing, because you are completely right. He did look really good to start out the preseason, and having him as a backup guard I think would be pretty big.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. So I think you pretty much hit everything that we needed to hit as far as all those positions. But talking about, I didn't include left guard on here just because I feel like there's just no good interior offensive lineman that you can feasibly bring in and be like, all right, he's going to be your starter, because one, those guys just aren't available. But let's talk about some free agency targets, man. Let's start with the tight end position, the position that we start out the show talking about. Talking about tight ends, there are a lot of decent tight ends out there. Otten, Likely, Goddard, Charlie Kohler, Isaiah Likely.
100%.
Anybody catch your eye in the free agent?
Kyle Pitt. So one guy that I was thinking of, and maybe this is the guy that we end up avoiding, just because it kind of is that same story of potential man, what have you. I wonder what a Kyle Pitts union in Denver would look like. Mm-hmm. I think Kyle Pitts has the skill set that a coach like Sean Payton really loves, as well as now new offensive coordinator Davis Webb. I think Webb could come up with some good stuff for Kyle Pitts, and I think that that's a connection. It's really Pitts would be a much upgraded Evan Ingram. Like you remember Madden Mobile, like back in the day, you could upgrade your players to crazy overalls. It's almost like you took Evan Ingram and stuffed some of those upgrade cards in him, and you go from a 78 to a 95 in 2 seconds. The way, and maybe that's me, looking at it with orange tinted glasses, or whatever. And maybe I'm overhyping Pitts. I definitely saw, or yeah, well, I mean, I did see, what that potential for Kyle Pitts could look like. And I really wonder if the kind of lack of consistent offensive staff and the lack of a consistent philosophy. Now, of course, with as long as he's been in the league, you do have to wonder if, if some of those issues or the lack of targets, lack of production, what have you, is on him, because there definitely is an argument to be made. But I don't think Atlanta's always had the best quarterback play with him there. I think it could be interesting. But a guy that I think I would rather go after would be Isaiah Likely. I think we've seen him consistently just make big plays after big plays in Baltimore, even as the backup tight end technically to Mark Andrews for a while, until they let him go. I really think he's got more of a balanced skill set. I think he blocks decently well. And I think he can make, he has made some of those big plays out of a receiving tight end that you absolutely love to see out of a guy. But what are you feeling on here? Who are some names that stick out to you?
Yeah, man. I just want, what we do matters less than, all right, let's just bring in this guy and make sure he's good at what he is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You remember how big of a deal they made about Chris Manhurts 3 years ago about his blocking?
Oh, man.
And then he just wasn't a good blocker.
No.
So if you're, it's less about who they bring in, because I think you got to gut this tight end room from the ground. No Kroll, no Adkins, no Troutman next year. Just can't have it. Just can't have it on a serious team with Super Bowl aspirations. But either way, so I'm thinking about this. I think Charlie Kolar is another one that'd be really interesting because he can absolutely block. Okay. Son of Bill Kolar, former Broncos defensive line coach. And there's a lot of other really good names in the free agency pool, like Dallas Goedert. I think that'd be very reliable. Cade Otton can play both in line and, be outstretched and used as a receiver. Same with guys like, I think maybe they extended Daniel Bellinger, but I thought that was part of his skill set too. But either way, so yeah, no, just talking about the tight end position, I think we're pretty solid there. So, or as far as, the free agents that we've touched on as well.
Yeah, the idea is.
Yeah, let's talk about inside linebacker, man. I know you're already pounding the table for
get me Devin Lloyd.
Yeah, you're pounding some of the table for some of those other names. And honestly, I just think you should run through those because I haven't done a whole lot of deep diving into the inside linebackers that are available in free agency. But Devin Bush, Devin Lloyd, those are names that have been on a lot of people's radar throughout this free agency process.
I gotcha. So all right, so some guys that we do have coming into unrestricted free agency, and sorry, I had to pull up a new list here.
Very good.
But there are some interesting guys right here. Demario Davis, he is old. The guy is 37, but we have seen him just year after year stack consistently good middle linebacker play. And even if you bring him in to bring along a younger guy that maybe you snag in the second or third round, I think Demario Davis has another, consistent year in him. If you don't like it, though, you've got, still 30, but younger Caden Ellis coming out of Atlanta. I think he's done some pretty solid stuff. Plus, now you'd have the Ellis brothers together. 100% as well coming out. Devin Lloyd, we already touched on, coming out of Jacksonville. Who are some other of these names here? I didn't get a chance to really just scroll this list as we were pulling stuff up. Bobby Wagner is coming up. He's not a guy that maybe I would look at. Quincy Williams from the Jets could be a guy that serves as an option as well. I don't really know what I think this also lumped edges together into that linebacker spot. But no, throw me some ideas there as well. Like, kind of how are you feeling about some of these guys? Devin Bush in there as well. I think he's had some solid moments.
Yeah, no. Fun fact about Devin Bush. I don't know if you guys remember, but had the Broncos turned in the pick at number 10 on the 2019 draft night and not traded back from the pick, it was going to be Devin Bush. Now, unfortunately, he kind of flowed out with Pittsburgh, so maybe trading back and getting a litany of busts was just a better move for us at the time because at least, you weren't stuck with one bust. You were stuck with a whole bunch. But, talking about the guys, I know we already – had that little talk about whether or not we should re-sign Sternad or whatever. And,
100%.
I hope he does. I hope he does get the chance to go somewhere and start. But yeah, no, I look at the free agent linebackers and I'm going to be so for real. Like there's just nobody that really tickles my fancy as an off-ball linebacker besides Devin Lloyd. I think he'd be a really good addition here. But, Troy Anderson is a UDFA in Atlanta, or a free agent in Atlanta, and he was somebody that I really liked after the draft process. He hasn't really gotten going in the NFL thus far, but yeah, overall off-ball linebacker. There's not a whole lot of names, but you know what? If there's anything this staff has done really well, it's finding those budget signings. But I don't really know if I want to go budget again. But Leo Chenal, he's also an athletic demon from.
He was a guy that I was going to bring up as well. I think I brought him up earlier in the show.
Yeah. Leo Chenal, just I think 10 relative athletic score, one of the most athletic guys you will literally find out there. But enough about inside linebacker. So wide receiver, all right. So you're not really going to find a whole lot of really good wide receivers, but I think this is where we're really like rubbing our hands together, and we're just like, this is where the Broncos can improve, and we ultimately have a chance to make a really, really big splash in this free agency period. You look at the names of receivers available. A lot of people have brought up Pickens. A lot of people have brought up Alec Pierce. How would you feel about adding a guy like George Pickens to this wide receiver room? A lot of people aren't for it, but a lot of people understand the merits of adding a guy that good.
100%. And, Pickens has a lot going for him too. He's talented. He can pretty much do everything that you ask out of a wide receiver. He's young. He'll be 25 going into the season. I definitely think that there are a lot of pros to bringing in George Pickens. And I think the only question that a lot of people really have is it's just personality questions. Yeah, he is, a smidge bit of a crash out. It happens. I think playing in Pittsburgh with Pittsburgh's, recent track record of quarterbacks can do that to a guy. Frankly, don't blame him. I do think, though, that Pickens could find a way to mesh with this locker room, even if it's, maybe not perfect, even if every now and again he's like, hey, I want the ball. I don't think he would be nearly as bad as someone like an A.J. Brown, even. Maybe Dallas mellowed him out for a year. Maybe Dak mellowed him out a little bit, because I feel like I didn't hear a lot about, George Pickens drama during the year. I think Sean Payton and the guys here are the kind of guys that could not necessarily rein in a George Pickens, but maybe kind of channel that kind of how George Pickens is, maybe channel that a little more onto the field, get him to be one of the guys. And I do think that he is by far the most talented receiver really in this free agent class. I would love to see that.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be fantastic. A lot of people talk about Alec Pierce, the production profile. He has never caught 50 passes in a year. So a lot of people are like, you want to spend $20 million a year on that, and maybe he could be a really good fit with us. Unfortunately, he's just not really that, possession receiver that I think we would need a little bit more. But Alec Pierce is a really, really good player too. Pickens and A.J. Brown are both divas. Yeah, I guess so. But once again, I didn't feel like he crashed out as much this past year, But
I can't even really think of like a real Pickens crash out this year.
Yeah, me neither. But I don't know. Playing with Dak, it allows you. And playing on Dallas with a team that throws the ball a bunch and has a horrible defense, it allows you to get those stats. So maybe he was just happy regardless of their record.
True.
Yeah, apparently we were in on Stefon Diggs last year, and I don't know that report. I don't really know how much I believe that, because Rappaport said that it was down to us and the Patriots, and I think we just did our due diligence and we just called about it. I don't think we were super duper close. Like, I know there's been more that's come out Super Bowl weekend, but I don't know. I'll have to look more into that. But either way, yeah, there's a couple free agent wide receivers available. Perfect Sean Payton wide receiver, Jawan Jennings, especially because he used to be a quarterback. Be a quarterback, blocks well, comes from the Shanahan tree, no block, no rock. Wan'Dale Robinson probably going to get re-signed by the Giants. If not, maybe he'd be a good fit here, but he's
maybe
primary slot, and honestly, he's had a really good year, so I can imagine the team is going to want to pay him a lot of money. Rashid Shaheed,
that was really who I was just looking at. You'd basically get your trade deadline target without having to give up a draft pick for him. I think Shaheed could be a really, really fun addition to this offense, for sure. Just the speed.
Yeah, need for Shaheed. So, yeah, we've kind of talked about wide receiver, but everybody's favorite. All right, this is going to be the last position we will talk about, but running back.
Oh, biggity boy.
All right.
Running back.
And there's a lot of really, really good, talented, young running backs available this cycle. I can't remember ever being a fan of the NFL and having a, running back class this stacked free agency-wise, with
100%.
Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, trying to think who else.
Yeah, I got the list here. You got Rashad
Yeah.
White coming out of Tampa Bay. Javonte maybe rehabbed coming out of Dallas. He's still only 26. Travis Etienne, Rico Dowdle, I think could be a sleeper guy that the Broncos go after. Isaiah Pacheco, Kenneth Gainwell, who we just saw have a really good year. And then just some even more kind of interesting guys down the board. Obviously, Dobbins, a free agent this year himself. But I do think that there are some really interesting guys here. You've still got a young buck in a Kamani Vidal, who I think has had some nice moments with the Chargers. Maybe not, always as the starter, but I do think he's had some nice moments. Just the deeper you get down here, I think you find some intriguing options. AJ Dillon he'll be 28. Raheem Mostert, he's old, but we've seen him do some crazy stuff himself. Nick Chubb, obviously coming from Houston, I don't think is a guy that you really go after. But a Brian Robinson, I thought Robinson had some really nice moments for the Niners this season. I think he's, I don't know if he's a guy that you start 100%, but I do think that he offers a very interesting experiment on a pretty small budget, considering he doesn't have the numbers to really command the market value of someone like a Breece Hall. But again, if you go out and get a Breece Hall or a Kenneth Walker, you're getting what is essentially a 25-year-old, really in Breece's case, just because, 24 and, a couple of months away from being 25 here. But Kenneth Walker as well, I think could, I mean, Walker, either of those guys, I think could really provide the spark that you need, especially leaving the Jets. They're going to have a little bit of wind in their sails. They're leaving Breece Hall, especially. He's leaving the Jets. There is no better feeling than leaving the New York Jets. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's going to be where a lot of the Broncos fans are rallying, where a lot of Broncos brass is rallying this offseason, is to go get Breece Hall.
Yeah, no, and I think, my number one free agent running back is Breece Hall, just due to one simple fact. All right, if you're going to go away from the run game, if you're going to give 8 carries to your running backs, you got to at least have a guy who can house call it on one of those 8 carries. And either him or Walker, I'd be completely fine with if either were to go that route. But, you could also resign J.K. Dobbins. Javonte Williams, I don't really want any part of. I think it was
I just threw the name out there for gits and shiggles.
Yeah. Algier would be a great combo with RJ. Yeah, I would like Algier.
That is true.
I would like Algier, but I think he's one of those guys that would require a lot of carries to get going, and you would just have to rely on this coaching staff to give him those carries. And honestly, I just don't know if they've shown that they're willing to do that. But yeah, either way, do you have any last thoughts about the running backs or the free agents as a whole in general?
Honestly, I think we've touched on just about everything I could have thought of here, especially for something like a free agency wish list. Just some of these guys that you would really, really like to see in a Broncos uniform. I think it's a very, very stacked class. I think Denver's got a chance here to go in and rival something like the 2014 draft, free agent class. Because we all know how banger of a free agent class that was for the Broncos to help set up that Super Bowl run in 2015. I think you've got a chance to really pick and choose who you want here. You're going to have the capital money-wise now that you no longer are dealing with Russell Wilson's dead money. I think that's huge. And I think a lot of guys are just going to come to Denver. I think they see the winning culture that Denver's building. I think they see, the stability in Bo Nix and Sean Payton. And I think you're going to be able to convince a couple of guys like, hey, I want to go there and be there.
Yeah, of course, 100%. Well, man, it was a pleasure having you on this show.
It was wonderful, man. It was outstanding.
This was
we got to keep doing this, dude. Listen, for the first time, I'm surprised it took us this long to do something, dog.
Yeah, me too. But either way, it ain't about me. So plug everything that you have going on. Plug everything. Just remind the people what you're about. For those of you who missed the start of the stream.
Yes, sir. So again, for anyone, of course, that did miss that start, my name is Miles. I mean, just play-by-play is kind of the thing that I do best. I do it for Broncos games for the most part, but I do it for other games. I will be doing it for the Super Bowl this upcoming weekend. I've got shows that are starting to kind of come out weekly as, I really get into a groove here for the off season. I do a little bit of gaming stuff on the channel as well. We do some live streams where I just, dick off and play games. I'm doing one of those Friday, MTTF with my buddy Trent as well. Absolutely love that guy. But to kind of flip this thing back around, man, go whatever love you plan on showing me, liking, subscribing, all that stuff, go show that right back to Kodiak, man. Kodiak does some great stuff himself. I mean, I enjoy the shit out of watching this guy's content. He pops up in my feed all the time, and I'm thankful for it. So, don't forget to, like and subscribe to both of us. Just absolutely love the hell out of all of you guys.
Yeah, of course.
I punched my table.
Yeah, man. We've got a great thing going here in Broncos country, and the new wave of Broncos media is here to stay. And me and Miles could not be happier to be a part of it. So that does it for us. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace out.